The delayed discovery and the age of the child and all that?
Yeah, because it's something that happened in my case where when my daughter turned 5 years old, I started thinking about what happened to her, what happened to me,
Yes.
because I started seeing her, and I just sort of remembering it,
Right.
and I didn't even tell anybody
Right.
because I thought that was really weird.
Right.
But then the more research I did, I found out that that's actually true in a lot of cases.
Right. There's a whole continuum, I think, Kay, between pure repressed memory, where a person has no memory whatsoever, and then something happens and all of a sudden they remember, and what I call suppressed memory, which is where they never forget what happened, but they don't think about it. They push it out of their mind, put it on the back shelf, and they're just never going to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole continuum in between there. Some people remember that they were abused, but they don't remember the details. Some remember portions of their abuse, but not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people remember it all, but they never think about it, and some people don't remember any of it until something happens. I call it all a trigger. If you see your daughter at age 5 and begin to think about what happened to you, and your memory starts to come back, if a person who has never forgotten their abuse all of a sudden drives by their old church by chance, and they start to think about this, even though they've always remembered it, they begin to sort of process. A classic situation is where a person is in, for example, marital counseling or drug and alcohol rehab, and they're filling out the checklist, and it says child abuse victim, yes, and the counselor says, tell me about this, and they start talking about it, and the counselor says, you got to look at this is a big deal. And that's a point at which the person begins to process what happened to them. I had one client say, he was a very successful young law enforcement officer, and he said, how could it have damaged me? I'm successful, I'm a cop, I have a beautiful wife and 4 beautiful kids. I wasn't damaged. And then 5 years later, I began to have to look at the fact that I really was damaged. So he was just kind of in denial about it. It's all various places on that continuum of repressed, suppressed memory.
Yeah.
And various things can trigger it, including, as I said with Steve and this other gentleman that I'm representing now, watching their own children at the age at which they were abused.
And that was very similar between the two clients. Have really similar
Almost
stories.
identical.
Can you tell
Almost
what the
identical.
story is in both cases?
Well, the first one was Steve, who was abused by a Catholic priest named Mel Butcher at St. Anthony's Franciscan Parish out in Tigard, Oregon. The second is a client in a case that we've not yet filed, so I don't want to name the church, but it's not the Catholic Church, it's a different church.
Okay.
And he was one of 3 brothers that were all abused by the same perpetrator. And his abuse started, I think, when he was 12 or 13. And one of his sons is now 12 or 13, and that's what got him thinking about what happened to him.
What happened when his son turned 12, and how did he describe it to you?
He just simply said, basically, part of what brought him to call me was thinking more about his own abuse as a result of watching his son, who was now the age he was when he was abused. He didn't go into a lot of detail about what went on beyond that.
And it was just seeing his son and thinking he was so innocent.
That was Steve's story. Just how innocent he was, how naive he was, how little the kid understood about sexuality at that age. And then Steve said, I began to think about what this priest did to me and the way he groomed me and all of that. And he said, I just had no tools to deal with that at that age.
Right.
And what it did was it removed the guilt. It
till
wasn't my fault.
Up till that point, he felt...
It was my fault. I was a big kid. I was 14 years old. I could have pushed him away. Why didn't I do that? I must have liked it. It must be my fault. And he sees his own son, and he goes, no. That's not what happens when you're 13 or 14.
Yeah.
So that was that story.
That really is a big part of it, is thinking that